Okay, I guess we're ready. Hi, my name is Michelle Bolter, and I'm tag teaming with Carolina Allen. We're part of Big Ocean, and it was up there, but I don't know where it went now, so it's gone. But I'm a mother of 3 boys. I live in St. George, and I homeschool, just started homeschooling this year, actually. And Carolina invited me to attend the United Nations, and I said yes. And so that started me on my path, and now, I don't know, we're just doing great things together, right? And it's just kind of crazy. So I'm not a big presenter. I've never done anything like this. So sorry, I'm just a little bit nervous. But anyway, my presentation is about data, and it's pretty much what I learned and got out of a meeting that I attended at the United Nations. The name of the meeting was entitled What If? And there were 2 main things that they talked about in this what if scenario that really struck me. The first one was, what if we could predict human and societal outcomes? And then what if we could use this data for women's reproductive health? So those are the 2 that I'm going to talk about because that really just struck a chord with me. So when we think about data and using data, a lot of us will agree that data has brought about great knowledge. And we've been able to make amazing advancements in technology and in how we live because of this data that we've gotten and used and gathered. But when we talk about data on the grand scale of this 21st century data worship that it seems to be that we're stuck in, we have to ask, what is the intended purpose? What's the intended use of this data? Is this data intended to just gather knowledge so we can have conversations? Or is this data intended to not only gather knowledge, but then control outcomes? And then the next question is, can this data be used to create truth? And I thought that was a really good question posted by Jenny, which as I started to think about it, I'm like, well, could it create its own version of truth? We have our core values. We have our values that we hold dear within our communities, within our families, within our own countries. And can data come in and say, hey, this is better for the child instead of this, despite years and years of experience that claims that children are better in a family with a mom and dad, the data states otherwise. So can that data create a different truth and then change truth, basically? So at the United Nations, at this meeting, the idea was, what if we could determine these different outcomes and better the world? And they talked about using companies to read this data, to read this aggregated data, and look at it and say, okay, person A, according to this data, could be capable of becoming an addict at some point in his life, or becoming unemployed or living on the streets. So we need to course correct. And then, or also looking at this data and saying, okay, this country, the way that they're going, they're headed towards a war, or their people could be displaced and become refugees. So what can we do about that? Which doesn't sound too bad, right? I mean, I think everything starts with good intentions, and then it just sort of skyrockets, snowballs, and explodes. Next thing we know, we are losing some freedoms. So the world of business decided to take data and use it in a different way. And their idea came from, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Moneyball. Any of you? Oh my gosh. That was my brother. Moneyball was a movie, and it was about the Oakland Athletics and how they used data to completely revolutionize how players were chosen for their team. And so I'm going to play this one clip where he's just talking about the data, and we're just going to, and then we'll talk about it. And I would make this.
You've tried to contact your mother, haven't you?
Yeah. Before it was insidious.
Sorry, that's not the clip. You guys can close your eyes. I thought I had, last time when I practiced this, I did the commercial and then paused it, and it worked. Obviously.
At least it's an uplifting clip. It's a full good one.
Why couldn't it have been the Olive Garden one? Okay. Oh shoot, now where's my volume?
So using this equation on the upper left right here, I'm projecting that we need to win at least 99 games in order to make it to the postseason. We need to score at least 814 runs in order to win those games and allow no more than 645 runs.
What's this?
This is the code that I've written for our year-to-year projections. This is building in all the intelligence that we have to project players.
Okay.
It's about getting things down to one number. Using the stats the way we read them, we'll find value in players that nobody else can see. People are overlooked for a variety of biased reasons and perceived flaws. Age, appearance, personality. Bill James and mathematics cut straight through that. Billy, of the 20,000 notable players for us to consider, I believe that there is a championship team of 25 people that we can afford, because everyone else in baseball undervalues them. Like an island of misfit toys. Billy, this is Chad Bradford. He's a relief pitcher. He's one of the most undervalued players in baseball. His defect is that he throws funny. Nobody in the big leagues cares about him because he looks funny. This guy could be not just the best pitcher in our bullpen, but one of the most effective relief pitchers in all of baseball. This guy should cost $3 million a year. We can get him for $237,000.
So this baseball team used data and completely changed how baseball players were chosen. And they used data to predict human performance, which sounded really great, right? We're gonna get past the biases. So nobody's gonna see the biases because everything is going to be based off of what this data says. This aggregated data collected. And that is what the business world is doing. And they're using it instead of building a baseball team or a soccer team. They're using it to build the workforce. And they're using it with our children's data. And our children's data that's collected from preschool on through elementary and into high school, college, and so on. So we're gonna cut through the biases, right? Well, what biases will this data create? What different types of biases? If your child is constantly in the principal's office, or let's say they failed a couple of tests, or heaven forbid, they make a Pop-Tart gun. What's the data going to say about your child? And what value will be placed on your child? Will your child be part of the island of misfit toys sold to the lowest bidder? And then how will society view individuals and their worth when it's all based on aggregated data and numbers that's collected throughout our whole time? I was listening to a talk not too long ago about a guy named Gregory Potemkin, and some of you may have heard this talk and this story, but he was the governor in Russia during Catherine the Great's reign, and she wanted to visit the different villages, so he hired some people to pose as villagers, and they created this mock village. It was just a shell of a village. And it was set up, and as Catherine the Great came, she saw these villagers doing what happy villagers do in Russia, and she turned the bend, and then they packed up the village, went and reset up another village, and continued the facade. And I'm wondering, is that what we're going to be doing with this data? Are we going to be having our children living a Potemkin life, where it's just a life based off of aggregated numbers and what somebody else has told them this is what you have to be, instead of living to their true potential and what they were created for? And so that's one of the dangers that I foresee in data, besides many others. But that's one of them that have to do with our children and with their ability to choose what they want out of life. And then the second part of the meeting that we attended, the What If meeting, they talked about using data for women's sexual and reproductive health. We learned at the United Nations that that's actually code for abortion and sterilization. And so this data would basically be used as a form of family planning, if you really get down to it. And then whose standard is everything going to be matched up against? Because in order to use this data, whether it's to predict individual outcomes or to predict where a country is headed or to predict anything about women's health and whether or not a certain family can have children, it all has to be set to some standard and somebody's vision of what a family is, or what a good country is, or what a good employee is. And so, oh, I forgot I have a button. Okay, sorry, maybe I should have separated that, but you guys can read. Myself and Jenny Baker, when we were at this meeting, we were able to address the panel of United Nations people that were there. And she asked, we were actually the last two to ask the questions. It just happened that way, and I think it was really good that it happened that way because it also so happened that Kate Gilmore happened to answer our questions. And so Jenny was talking about how data has been around for years and years and years. It's not just this new thing that's been created in the 21st century. Parents have been gathering data on their children and within their families for years. That's how we know things about our children. And she says, how will this new form of collecting data with this new technology, how will this be able to protect the family's personal data so the personal family data will stay within the family? And then I asked the question about retail, because throughout that What If presentation, they were constantly talking about data as being good for retail, and it's going to be great for retail, and it's going to boost retail. So my question was, how will you protect that data and be able to assure us as mothers that our children will not be turned into commodities and that we as parents won't be referred to as stakeholders? And I used their exact language against them because when you read the post-2015 agenda, there is nothing in there, there's no mention about family. But when it talks about parents, we're clumped in there with parents and other stakeholders throughout that whole document, especially when it has to do with education, parents and other stakeholders. So Kate Gilmore, she's the executive director of UNEFCA, which is the United Nations Population Fund. She begins by answering, I just want to add that data is neither here nor there. Its only value is in how we use it, how we interpret it, and what we do with it. There is one feature in the human condition, I think, that we have to challenge to keep pace with the data revolution, and it's that of core values. So we have to challenge our core values to keep pace with them. But what does she mean by that? She continues, that our strengthening and understanding of universal values has been captured in the great human rights instruments, absolutely key to keep lockstep with our evolution of the understanding of the power of data to become part of a positive transformative agenda. So now our core values, I had to read that a few different times to really understand what she was saying, but our core values have to align with the universal values, which are kept in lockstep with what the data is coming out and saying. And so whatever the data says, that's what the universal values are, and you've got to align your core values to it. And if you can't, then you need to find a way to do it. And then she says, she talks about the MDG goals, because we have had 15 years of MDG goals, which are Millennial Development Goals, that were set in the year 2000, and they had to be met by 2015, this year, and they were not met. She says that even though we have brought more girls into primary education, and we have reduced preventable maternal mortality, we have deepened inequality. So despite these wonderful MDG goals that back in 2000 they said, this is gonna be it, we're gonna create equality, it hasn't happened. And then she answers why.
Preventable maternity mortality.
yeah, preventable. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I've noticed that when you ask them a question, lots of times they'll answer this really long thing, and there's really no answer in there, and you're just like, what? So, anyway, but these goals haven't worked, and she says why. She says that there needs to be a universal discipline of adhering to universal values. So here we go back to those values, and we need to be disciplined. We weren't disciplined the past 15 years in adhering to those universal values that were set to the data, and what the data says is truth. We need to align our core values. We have to find a way to align our core values to match those. And after looking at this and then realizing what she was saying, if you go back and you read the Next Generation Science Standards, there's places in there where in the framework, it will ask for you to align your beliefs with those standards, whether it is about evolution or global warming or anything like that. It's in the framework. Just take any of the standards, type it in the search, and really look at that framework. That framework opens up a whole new world for you. So, this is my favorite part of her answer. I'm going to play it because I think it really helps to listen to her voice and her passion behind it.
For millions and millions of women, a marriage is an arbitrary detention cell. That the kitchen is a torture chamber. That the bedroom is a site for the gravest of human rights violations. And much as we wish to uphold the responsibility and the burden of parenting to sustain people in that and to preserve the privacy, I am afraid by performance alone we can neither trust nor leave alone the care of the most vulnerable to anybody who has power over them, whether it be the state, whether it be the church, whether it be the mosque or the synagogue, or unfortunately the family or the marriage.
So, and if you'd like, this is up, this whole what if video. You can give me your email, I can email you the link and you can listen to it. But that is what she said, yes?
Since she includes the state in that, who are we supposed to leave these vulnerable people to?
United Nations.
That's,
I see.
this is all the United Nations.
Right. The
It's
state,
all coming from a
each
globalized global government.
Which
Yeah.
is CONCOR.
This is coming from the idea of a one world global government. And
It's
so when
important
she
to
talks
understand.
about countries, she refers to them as states.
Oh, okay.
So,
UN member states.
yeah, it's not like the state of Utah. We're talking about the United States. Like that is a state, or Kenya
It's a
is
UN
a
member
state.
state, part
Yeah.
of the United Nations.
And so, do our core values align with that? Do we believe that marriage is a detention cell or a torture chamber or the site of the gravest of human rights violations? And then if we don't, then what? We're in trouble. And then what does the data say about that? Because just before she answers this part, she talks about saying that they used aggregated data to come up with this.
Wow.
And so that's where she got that from, data that I don't believe in. And then, like it was pointed out, who are we supposed to trust? If we can't trust our countries or our churches, any of our churches, or the family, or our marriage with our husband, with us and our husband, spouses, who are we supposed to trust? And that is very, very, very dangerous when we have ideas like this. And so when we think of data collection and the idea that data collection could be used to facilitate conversations, perhaps family-friendly conversations, that's fine. I'm good for using data to give me more knowledge about how I choose to incorporate that knowledge within my family, or how we as a sovereign nation chooses to use that knowledge within our own country. But the minute we start talking about data to make changes and to force changes, then that's when we have a problem. And we pretty much create a modern day archaeological dig with this data, only we're still alive. And I have to give credit to my friend Jenny for that. I told her I was so stealing it. But really, that's what we're doing. It's a modern day archaeological dig, only we're still alive. So instead of looking at the past thousands of years ago and trying to piece together how they lived, instead, we're looking at this aggregated data and piecing together how you will live and saying this is what you're going to do, this is the direction you're going to take or your country is going to take. And when we have this kind of data worship, when we do this, the biggest victim is the individual and their loss of freedom and their loss of ability to be able to govern themselves. And that's the biggest loss. And so to sum up, so I can leave some time for Carolina, we have to remember that there's a fine line between gathering data to facilitate knowledge and then gathering data to control. And they just need to stay far away from that control line. Thank you. Absolutely. It took so long to get it up there, it's staying up there.
Well, hi everyone. My name's Carolina Allen, and I went to the United Nations with Michelle and with Jenny, and Jenny's daughter Emily as well, who's not here. But I took just a little bit of background. I had been just really perturbed, just researching things and looking into things and finding, surely this can't be. It kept leading back to the United Nations in this kind of globalized control center. And I thought, oh my word, like, surely I'm reading into this wrong. But through a lot of, searching and prayer, I'm a woman of faith, and I am proud of that. I reached out to God, and I asked, what can I do about it? And felt really helpless and hopeless. And I'm going to tell you an experience that I had. As I started researching these things and feeling completely like, oh my word, what do I do? I actually broke down and started bawling one day. It was actually 3 a.m. On a cold, windy, January morning, and the rest of my family was asleep, and I felt completely helpless and hopeless as to how can I do something for my children? What do I do? And the feeling came to me that you just need to unite a lot of good women with you. You can't do it alone, but if you gather enough strong, powerful women that are willing to stand for goodness, then this is what you need to do. So ever since that feeling that I had of helplessness and hopelessness, it was just replaced with incredible empowerment, like this feeling of empowerment. And it kind of set me on a trajectory where I said, well then I'm going to find out really what is happening. So I started digging around, and I got connected to some pro-family organizations, and I went with them a couple of years ago to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, which is an all-women's kind of conference. And it's actually like the feminist mecca of, they gather there, and it's just this really powerful feminist voice that talks about all of these world issues within that context. And I went there, and my feeling was, where are all the moms? Where are all the moms? The moms need to be here. They're talking about women and our children and our families, and we're not being represented here. So I went back home and thought, well, what now? Feeling helpless again. What do I do now? And then the idea came, you need to gather, it came back to that point, you need to gather good, powerful women that stand with you on faith and on family and on protecting our children and our freedoms and all of these things. So that's what I did. I just put my foot forward and just worked in that direction, and doors have opened. And that's what Big Ocean Women is all about. It's a maternal feminist collective. And maternal feminism, it's important that we include that word in there, because a lot of the dialogue is happening through this other kind of warped feminism. But if we bring back the righteous feminism within that sphere, we can have the representation that we need to fight for our children, fight for our families the way that we need to. So Big Ocean Women means that we're not just another wave of feminism. We are the whole ocean of women that believe in faith, that believe in families, that believe in children. And there are more of us out there than there is of the other type. So I like the idea of Big Ocean because it gives us this grandness, and that we're part of just a massive collective, and that makes us really, really powerful. So what I did this last year is I went and found UN badges for 25 of us, I think, that went out there. And we went out and just spread the word, and it was incredible the kind of response that we had. We had women coming from all over the world saying, let me join you, I want to be part of this. This is the first time I've heard of, you know, women who are voicing my kind of feelings. Women from all over Africa, all over the Caribbean, you know, all over South America. We ran into young women and girls and you know, all ages saying, we want to stand with you, we believe in this. And so it was very empowering. And so I think that, you know, I just wanted to share the message of empowerment and to not feel like, you know, we're all alone in this, that there are people from all over the world, women from all over the world that want the same things that we do. And it's time that we start uniting and joining forces together. And that's what Big Ocean Women is all about. And so when we're talking about changes that need to happen on a local level and even on a national level, we need to understand where the rot is coming from, and it's coming from an international level. So as we're creating these changes locally and standing, I hope that we can also stand on a bigger umbrella paradigm, which is internationally, so that we can represent our voices at the international level at places like the United Nations, and that we can start collaborating and growing our movement of empowered mothers and women, you know, locally and nationally, but also we can stand together at the international level and say, look, we have Big Ocean Women members from Chile, from Brazil, from Uganda, from Kenya, from Utah, and we are all saying the same thing. One, that we are over our children, that we get to say, and that we can include faith. Faith is currently at the international level on the chopping block. And so it's really important that we bear witness of the things that we believe in, and that we hold on tight to those core values. And that we also, this maternal feminism, one of our biggest points that we emphasize is that we embrace our complementary roles with men. So it's very different from egalitarian feminism, which is the feminism that we hear of mostly that is tainted with, you know, all of the things that don't fit well with our spirits. But maternal feminism is we work with men. We are the complementary, you know, elements of each other, of one another, and that is what is powerful in the world. And so anyway, I pray that all of us, as in our journeys, in whatever path that we feel we need to take, and that's between us and God, that we can be united as we stand for these things. And I think the unity is really the main message that I'd like to share, and that's what's going to get us, you know, the kind of results that we need, you know, to care for our families. So I brought in my purse compass, because this ultimately, it's between what's in here and our maker that will lead us in the path that we need to take. So each and every one of you here are leaders, and I want you all to feel how important and critical your voice is, and whatever God is inspiring you to do, you need to have the courage and to do it. And it doesn't matter. I was reading today in Philippians where, and in fact, I'm going to read it because it's important that we take the freedoms that we have. And I'm going to use the Bible today because I have that freedom. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. And in Philippians today, I was reading, and it talked about it talks about not wanting to not being jealous in taking credit for something, but in standing in unity. And it says, nevertheless, whereto we have already attained, let us walk by the same rule, let us mind the same thing. Brethren, be followers together of me, and mark them which walk, so as ye have us for an ensample, and to walk, okay. I'm wanting to just really stress that it doesn't matter who takes credit for things. There are lots of amazing organizations in the world. But as long as we feel compelled by our spirits to take our internal compass and to move in the direction that we feel, to start joining forces, not only standing up together, but holding hands together, whether it be through Gathering Families or through Utahns Against Common Core or through Big Ocean Women or through United Families International or Family Watch International, all of these things that have the similar thread, we need to start joining forces and joining hands. And I think that that is so exemplary in the way that the Latter-day Saint Church and the leaders are starting to join forces with other denominations and faiths to make things happen. And I think that it's important that we not get so focused on our little causes that we just want to see ourselves excel or take credit for whatever good is happening through our organization, but that we start holding hands with other organizations of like minds and to start not worried about who gets the credit for what, but just move forward in goodness and light. And I think that things that we need to focus on are our faith, to share our faith. Don't be ashamed of our faith, to speak. You know, when God puts something in your mouth, you speak it, and you don't be afraid to open your mouth. And the second is to embrace our complementary roles between men and women, our maternal instincts and our feminine identities, to not be afraid of that. And to also stand for our children and stand for our families. And we, and not feel alone as we're doing that. I think it's critical. You're not alone. You've got a whole ocean of women and men out there that believe the same things. And if I may say so, that we have all been given the light of Christ. And that is our internal compass. And as we magnify that light within us, then we will be led to do amazing things. And the doors will open. We just need the courage to walk through them and to make those kind of things happen. So anyway, I'd just like to close and just thank you all for being here. And we had amazing experiences at the UN, and I want to just leave some time for questions and answers if you guys would like to ask Jenny and I or Michelle any of our experiences there. It was really incredible. So anyway, I just wanted to leave that open for you all.
When do you guys go? When is the UN time?
So it's every March. It's 2 weeks in March, and we went the last week, and our delegation of 25 were able to do incredible things while we were there. We just networked with women from all over the world and growing this kind of global movement. And anyway, it was just an incredible experience. But second week of March is when we go.
One of the coolest things when we got there is that it was our group of 25 moms, and then there was a group of how many of the
75
youth from Mexico, and they were just the cutest, most amazing 15 through 25-year-olds, and they were so well spoken, and they were very amazing, family friendly, and talking about the complementarity between men and women, and we kind of just took that place by storm. I don't think they knew what to expect because there were so many of us that kind of just joined together, and all the moms were watching over the kids, making sure they had food and making sure they, and as soon as they'd get up to speak, and we all looked at them like they were ours, It was just so fun to see that power that the youth have, I think, even more greater than what we have.
Yeah, it was amazing. It really felt like the Big Ocean when we were there. Just the outpouring of women that feel the same ways that we do.
Were any decisions, conclusions made in this?
Well, so Michelle talked a little bit about the MDGs, the Millennial Development Goals, and it's the UN comes up with these 15-year chunks of, a timeline of 15 years to achieve all of these kind of goals. So this year was a big one because it's the end of one mark and be the beginning of the other. And the next 15-year marks are called the Sustainable Development Goals. The family's not mentioned in there at all, and they've totally, let's say that the sexuality aspect of it is interwoven for the next 15 years. So that's their big push. Hence, all of the sexuality, comprehensive sex ed that you see, even at our local level we're seeing now. They are really, really pushing this. And so, and also like the reproductive health care and putting like healthcare facilities inside schools. I mean, this is, it's very well orchestrated and organized. So anyway, the outcomes are that they try to create these kind of, they're soft laws or international customary laws that are they really affect us locally. And it's kind of all encompassed in the language that they adopt. So they have a big consensus document at the end of this commission, and where UN member states will kind of sign on and kind of agree to the language that's used. And so that's really, really important. And so you've got these pro-family organizations that are there trying to keep the language, the precious language like mother and father and family in there. But over the years, it's been strategically removed or replaced. For example, a few years back, it was maternal health care. So it's the word maternal in there has been removed. So now it's reproductive health care. Well, what does that do? It takes the mother away. It changes it, and so it becomes like an anomaly, like same thing as saying abortion, within the walls of the UN. Yeah, exactly. So that's the critical part. So when you go to these things, you've got some specific pro-family organizations that are there trying to advocate to keep certain words in and things like that. But what we don't have and what we're missing and what Big Ocean is trying to do is we don't have a big, broad support network that supports those organizations. They're just like a handful of them there, and they're saturated by all of the other NGOs, that are lobbying these poor UN member states that are like trying to hold on to this good language, but they're just overwhelmed by the sea of the other. And so we need to create a really, really big international grassroots base that supports the values that we hold dear, because they're getting strategically removed. And so that's what Big Ocean is so I've got business cards here. If you guys want to take, you guys can look at our website. But what we need right now is to spread the word and to start using the word like maternal feminism, because it actually, it kind of, I guess it hijacks the other feminism that's doing all of the corrupting. So we kind of sneak in and say, well, we're feminists too. We're maternal feminists. We believe in faith. We believe in protecting our children. These are the values that we hold dear, and we have a place at that negotiating table too. We want our voices represented as well. And so that's what we're about. So, yeah.
Did you see an outcome then?
Yeah, the outcome document was created, and you can take a look at it. It's the Sustainable Development Goals are being kind of, I'm sure that they're already established, but
isn't it October that they'll vote on them?
They'll vote on them, but we pretty well know, it's kind of the louder ones that get their pet projects put in. A lot of comprehensive sexuality education. We're going to be seeing a lot of they're pushing a lot of anti-discrimination things internationally, which mean, have a lot of, sexuality involved in them, and so a lot of that, I foresee that happening in October when we get to see those documents.
The first meeting I went to, and it was in that big room, you see on TV
General
with
Assembly.
with the microphones and the people, and one of the people up in the front that were speaking from Denmark, he was the delegate from Denmark, and he said that we will only really truly find world peace once men are less masculine and women are less feminine. And then another person said that they would use the data to ensure that there would only be, that they would make sure that the women were bringing in half the income and the men were doing half the housework. And that's how they would use the data to make sure that that would happen. And that was our first meeting, and my daughter and I were sitting there. Like, did we enter the Twilight Zone? What happened? It was a little odd.
A lot of the meetings we were
But the amazing thing is when we went, we felt the need. Yeah. That's the thing. we felt that we were filling in this incredible gap. And we just need to grow that voice. We need to grow the things that we know intuitively. And the thing is that people all over the world feel it intuitively as well. We just aren't unified. And so that's what we need to do. We just need to start holding hands and standing up and unifying. And so Big Ocean Women, our main purpose is to, the Young Women Values, right? I'm sure many of you here are familiar with them. Those are our tenets. They're just dressed philosophically. So we believe in faith. We're women of God. Women all over the world, people are religious all over the world. We're the majority. And we believe in these things. We believe in the complementarity between men and women. We believe in the sanctity of life. These are things that are intuitive to us. We're just not organized. And so that's what we need. We just need to start holding hands and working together. What's that?
We're all at home with our kids.
Exactly, which is why this is interesting, a little bit of background. So the feminist movement really tried, during the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, they didn't win. What happened? They went and set up shop at the United Nations, and they've been there ever since, untouched. And they've been ruling things and making things work, and they've made a lot of progress. Now what we need to do is go there and stand there as a light and shine our light ever so bright. And in the way that we do it, we don't do things the way they do. They do a lot of teeth gnashing and fist raising. We go and we show up. We went with our 25 women and we smiled and we greeted everybody, and everybody fell in love with us. And we were so effective. And it seemed they were like, one woman actually pulled me out of a conference and said, it was during when the youth, the Be Women group, the 75 girls that we told you about, were presenting. It was standing room only, this huge, awesome presentation. And she stands up and says, how do you not realize that this is so, just discriminating, and kind of booing them. And all of us had been clapping, and we felt so, like the spirit was so strong in that room. And this woman stands up and was really upset and angry. And I stood up right after her and said, ladies, this is incredible. How are we going to grow this movement? Well, her face just dropped. And then she pulled me out of the room later and said, what you said really concerns me. I feel sick inside. And I think she really felt threatened. She was incredibly threatened because she saw these young people rising up and all of us supporting them, and just the broadness of the global feel of it all. There were women from Africa, from Latin America, all over the world there saying the same thing, and she felt threatened. Well, I just wanted to say that we belong in that space. We're needed in that space. We need to go to the places that are making all of these kind of global decisions, and we need to bring our mothers. We need to go there and show our representation and be there. And our message is so much more appealing. And that's why we're so needed, and that's why we're going to be so successful, and why we have been so successful. This thing started, it's been only months, and we've got people calling in from Chile, calling in from Brazil, saying, how can I grow it in my neck of the woods? And anyway, it's just needed. So you that are here today, if you feel compelled to, if you feel like, the Spirit is saying something to you to grow it in your area. Get together, look at our website. We have these like Big Ocean council packets. So it's like, just grab a group of friends, sit down in your home, talk about these issues. If you've read an article that you want to discuss it with somebody, talk about it with your women. And just start using the word maternal feminism. It's okay, because we need to be into that space. But when we use the word feminism, maternal feminism, our feminism, we're entering that space, and then we can really kind of grow our movement there. So if this is something that you're interested in, this is definitely something that we can join forces with. So
one of the things that surprised me the most is that when we first got there, everybody kind of stayed away from each other, and everybody didn't know who to trust, and everybody, not us, but everybody that we were around. And then by the end of the week, people would see us and then like, you're Big Ocean Women? I'm Big Ocean Women too! And everybody had this feeling of sisterhood that didn't exist before we got there, which I think is amazing. And I think that's ultimately our whole thing, is creating this feeling of sisterhood worldwide, and so that we're actually, and you don't know what sisters are unless you actually have children. I mean, you actually see families at work, and once you understand that from the time you're little, it is such a natural thing to see. And I think that there's a lot of people in the world that aren't seeing family. They don't understand sisterhood. They understand data, but they don't understand that sisterhood. We know it better than anyone else, and that's what we need to go teach everybody.
It was incredible. Just the response. It was phenomenal. We are needed. We are needed. Our voice is needed.
Hey, if this isn't a dumb question, like I've heard about the United Nations stuff and how this stuff is trickling down through education, and when I try and bring it up to my friends, they think I'm nuts. This does not come from the United. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So how do you handle? Do you just don't?
No, just get informed and just meet people where they're at. If they're not ready for it yet, just start talking about things that they are concerned about. But whatever the issue is, just start learning together. Grab your friends and say, let's come over and we'll have, Big Ocean Women is also really, one of our main focuses is service, humanitarian outreach. So when you have a Big Ocean Council meeting, you're gonna say, hey, 5 friends, come meet at my house. We're gonna be doing this service project together. We're gonna be eating, and let's read this article, and then we'll talk about it. So you're learning together. Meet people where they're at. If you go and talk to them about the stuff that we talked about, they may not believe you. Because I didn't believe for myself. I had to go there and actually see with my own eyes the documents and the things. And so I had to go and, yeah, but the more that we're talking about it, the more we're dialoguing, the more they're gonna have their own questions, be like, well, why is this happening? And then they're gonna start their own path of discovery. But we can facilitate that and say, I read this article, I read that article. But that's why it's so important to start spreading the word. If your friends don't know, then it's time that they start learning. Yeah, and then you after.
Are you finding the delegates? I got to be part of it. I don't know if it's Family Watch or the other, where we hosted delegates in Arizona and Gilbert.
That's Family Watch, yeah.
Oh, Family Watch.
Yes.
And these delegates were so faith-based.
Yes.
Family.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it was incredible to meet all of them. They were from Africa, most of them. And are you finding the delegates getting stronger?
We need to support them. The African bloc is very strong, but they're starting to crumble. Of course, after years and years of being harassed or having these carrots dangling in front of them, you won't get AIDS funding unless you adopt our values. This is too much for them. They need support, which is one of the biggest reasons why Big Ocean Women went out there, was to support them, to say, you're not alone. There are Western women that care about your country, hence the humanitarian outreach. And so we cannot just leave them alone to do all of the fighting for us while we sit here. It's time to start standing up, and it's hard. Yes, it's hard because we have little kids at home. I have 5 at home that I homeschool, but I'm being called to the work, and God provides. And so, and the more women we gather, the more of the burden is lifted off all our shoulders. We're all able to do a little bit of something. And so, yeah, you're next. I'm sorry you raised your hand. Yeah, Heidi Estes?
Yeah, sorry. How do you get past that money-driven power, though? What organizations do we align with to bring in that influence? Because money speaks.
It does. It has the purse strings. You're right, it does. It does speak. One of the biggest things I believe, there are still so many countries that have integrity, okay? But the humanitarian effort, and that we don't leave people alone. We can't say, well, stand for the family, but we're just gonna ignore you over here because we've got this comfortable life or whatever. There are countries that are trying to fight for the family, but then they have no support. We need to support them. And the amazing thing is that a lot of these religious, different faith groups are very humanitarian, and we've been doing that work for many years. The Latter-day Saint Church, the kind of work, the humanitarian outreach that we produce in a given year is incredible. The problem is we just need to shine that light bright so that these countries know that they will be supported, that it's not just, this government entity, NGO, that will support them, but that look, you have an alternative. And that's what we need to share. And yes, maybe we're not as glamorous as International Planned Parenthood Federation, and we don't have as much of the money, but look, this small NGO, we can help you though. And there are enough of them out there that if we just need to start unifying and spreading the word that it is an alternative. So
the biggest thing that we need to do is just empower these women to let them know that they can take charge of their own lives, the lives of their children. In the United States, we know that, and how hard is it for us to say, well, could I homeschool my kids? Maybe. Well, am I capable? And you absolutely are very capable. And if we're capable, so are they, because God wouldn't have made us different. And so that's what we're trying to do through Big Ocean Women, is to empower them and letting them know you don't need to get all of this money. You can absolutely do it on your own. And then we just have to help them and teach them how to do it.
Once
and we
families are strong, then the communities are strong, and then the nations are strong, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, Jenny, will you tell your story about that book, about the African, I think it was an African country that needed the homeschool?
All of the Yeah, there's.
We met with Malawi, like
yeah,
higher up.
Well, I went in and we met with Malawi and their like embassy, and the mission, and they found out that we worked with education, and so one of the ladies pulled me into her office, and she's like the Secretary of State or something, or anyway, and she pulls me into her office and she said, we need help, we need education, and it costs $1,000 a year to teach all the kids. And I said, well, what if, and I knew we couldn't, $1,000 a year per kid, I knew we couldn't do that. And I said, what if you had a reading curriculum that was so simple that you could teach it in your home? And she said, well, a lot of the moms don't know how to read. And I said, well, what if that was so simple that somebody like a young girl could come in and teach, or have the neighbors come together and teach. And she looked at me, she grabbed my arm, and she said, you have that curriculum? And I said, we can get that curriculum to you. So we are in the process of making that perfect curriculum happen and funding it. So if anybody would like to help fund that, please come, look in the Big Ocean, donate money, because we need help.
Yeah, but that's the neat thing, is we have solutions. We all have been given little tiny skills or talents or solutions. We just need to start coming together, and that's the idea. So, yeah.
And I think you have to remember, this is my first time, and Michelle just dragged me up here, 4 o'clock in the morning. But I am so pleased to be here, by the way. There are so many good people in the world, in our nation, that just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so I think by doing this and spreading the word, just amongst everybody you know, that and there's a lot of people with a lot of money that really just want good too, but they just don't know where to go or what to do with it to make a change in things. And for some of you talk about the United Nations over there, and the friends think they were crazy if they brought it up. Actually, if you just tell your friends to go to the United Nations website, if you read the charter, you'll be like, wow, that's fantastic. What a wonderful idea. What a peace on earth, goodwill to men, it's all going to be great. And then tell them to keep reading. It only takes a couple of pages. And then they'll be shocked at what they see. And I don't know what you put on your website, but some of the things that you've encountered personally, if you put those onto your website and say, you know what, section such and such, and then have them go to the source to read it, then that will help everybody be able to spread the truth. Because unfortunately, I mean, these are some of my closest people. They tell me stuff, but I have to see it where it's at. Because I don't just listen to anybody. I want to know exactly where things are at. And I have 2 compliments for you, sorry. Number 1, I love when, I think Michelle put it up on her Facebook, the maternal feminism. The first time I saw that, I was like, wow, that is awesome. I don't know who came up with that. But that is an amazing thing, because really, the people on the other side of the fence are perfect at using our language to manipulate people. What do we call murdering babies? Choice. Right? What do we call everything? It's all language.
It's language.
So that's
we need to get our language back.
And your little slogan about
we heal the world one wave at a time.
Heal the world one wave at a time. I'm not even sure if you thought about this, but when I saw it, I thought, who else would heal the world? If a child is injured, who do they run to? They run to their mothers. They do. I mean, yeah, dad's cool, but he'll be like, yeah, brush it off. We heal our children, we heal families. Who else would heal the world but women? Yeah. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And we're going to be participating in 2 huge conferences. And I want to just stress this before I have to go. before we all go. It's the World Congress on Families. It is coming to Utah. It's been all over the world, and it's coming to Utah, to Salt Lake, and also the World Parliament of Religions. Big Ocean is going to participate in both those. So please get involved, spread the word, because we need manpower, we need woman power to help in those things. And it's historic. It will be part of a historic thing, and Big Ocean is really going to be an integral part of that. And so I hope that we can spread the word, because we're World Parliament on Religions, we're hosting dignitaries from all over the world. So if you have friends in Salt Lake that would like to, yes, please come and become a member, and then send us your information and how you'd like to help, because this is where it's needed. So anyway, there's a lot of amazing things headed, and we just need to spread the word now to grow the movement, share the message, maternal feminism, Big Ocean Women, or Family Watch, or United Families International, whatever it is that you're drawn to, but we just need to start holding hands and standing together.
Where's the schedule for those upcoming events?
You can go to our website. We'll have the information. Okay, yeah, we're revamping, so it's going to be more user friendly. But you can also go to World Parliament of Religions and look at it. It's all in October. It's the 2nd and 3rd week of October, and World Congress of Families too. So anyway, thank you all. Thank you all so much, and thank you for all the people that put this together. Renee, thank you. You're incredible. Jenny, yeah.